Thank you for being here. It is our pleasure to share a bit about the professional development training, trauma-informed practice on and off the mat. My name is Sarah Kinsley, and I have the pleasure of offering the mindfulness modality. I would like to share over the modules ways to work with the impacts of trauma, both at the individual level and the collective level, offering various tools found in the yogic and Buddhist traditions that have been helpful for myself and for those I've worked with over the years. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nicola Mosley, and I integrate the 20-hour trauma-informed practice into the training. So we take a look at the underpinnings that contribute to this modality. We really look at power dynamics and intersectionality. And the amazing thing is it's spread over time. So there's lots of opportunities to integrate that into mindfulness practice, into the tensegrity practice as well.
I'm Lydia Zamorano, and the modality that I'm happy to share is a somatic series called the Tensegrity Repair Series that I learned from my teacher, Joya Irwin. The aim of the series is to redistribute tension in the body's tissue, mainly the connective tissue framework. And what this might be able to do is integrate our deep core and allow us to be a little bit stronger as we work less hard. So more ease, a little bit more resilience in the tissue. And there's another component to this series where the movements are oscillating. There's no endpoint to the forms. And for many people, that can be very calming for their nervous systems.
We would like to offer a braided practice. When you're ready, finding a comfortable form for your body. You might choose to be seated, or you could lie down for the practice. Whatever feels best for you. Perhaps taking a moment to orient to the space around you. For some, that might mean looking around with your eyes, taking in the colors and textures. Maybe for others, that's orienting through sound, allowing the soundscape to be an anchor of attention. Another option would be touch. You might notice the placement of your hands, making contact with the ground or your body. Taking a moment to orient in the way that feels right for you. Through sight, through sound, through touch. Knowing at any time in the practice, you can come back to orienting. And now, if it's available, noticing the ground beneath you, your spot on the earth, your earth body meeting earth. And perhaps there's sensations arising from the contact of your body meeting either the ground or the support you're resting on. Maybe tingling or pulsing. You might notice heat or coolness. Or perhaps there's no sensations right now. There's no right or wrong. As best you can, taking a moment, noticing the connection of your body meeting the earth. Now we'll pass it over to Nikki.
If you're seated, you might be interested in removing any objects you have beneath your seat, or if you're laying down, you might be interested in coming to seated and shifting to a tabletop form. Perhaps your hands are beneath your shoulders, your knees beneath your hips. Option to tuck your toes if you'd like to experience some stretching in your muscles in your feet. Perhaps taking the opportunity to shift your hips towards your heels. option to pause there, or maybe you shift your shoulders over your wrists. So there's an option for a stillness at any point, or you might explore, you might create rhythm and movement, shifting forward and back as an option. Noticing if engaging movement of your spine interests you, option to round and flex your spine as you shift forward and back. Perhaps you experience sensation in your muscles in your feet as your hips come towards your heels, or experience sensation in your wrists and hands as your shoulders come over your wrists. You might continue this movement for 3, if you're choosing to engage. Maybe for 2. Maybe for 1. When you're ready, perhaps coming into your neutral tabletop form, and in your own time, perhaps shifting your right foot forward between your hands to the front of your mat, finding your foundation for a low lunge form. You might choose to keep your hands on the ground. Perhaps you bring your hands to your right knee. Maybe today you're interested in lengthening your arms towards the ceiling. You can always change your mind in whatever choice you're making. All choices are of equal value. Maybe noticing that you're breathing for 3, for 2, and for 1, whenever you're ready. If your hands were raised, perhaps bringing your hands back to frame your right foot. Option to bring your right knee next to your left knee. Whenever you're ready, perhaps bringing your left foot forward into your low lunge on the other side. You might choose to pause here. Perhaps there's an exploration of movement in your hips. Or you might be interested in bringing your hands to your left knee, or perhaps towards the ceiling. And recognizing your choice on this side might be a different choice based on the sensations you might be experiencing in the front of your right hip. You might be experiencing sensations in a different location than I'm describing as well. Perhaps staying for 3, maybe for 2, maybe for 1. Whenever you're ready, if your hands were raised, framing your left foot to bring your left knee back towards your right knee, you might explore some movement of your hips, perhaps shifting them side to side, or maybe a circular motion as an option that interests you. And when you're ready, perhaps sitting back towards your heels to untuck your feet from beneath you, preparing to transition yourself onto the ground as we transition to Lydia to share.
From your seat, you have an option to hold on to the backs of your knees and roll on down through your spine, letting the back of your body make contact with the floor. You can take your feet a little closer in towards your seat here. And there's an option to take your lower back a little closer to the floor. You might feel the curve of your lower spine. And you might get interested in taking that a little closer to the floor. With your hands, you could take your hands to the front of your hips, and you might feel 2 protrusions, 2 bony protrusions at the front of your hips. And you might imagine those squeezing together, integrating some of your deep core musculature. You have an option here to let your right leg come up into the air. You could play with having that leg straight or a little bit bent. And the invitation is to lower that leg towards the floor and then lift it back up towards the sky in a rhythmic movement. So lowering and lifting. And as you might be exploring this movement, you could keep your lower back a little closer to the floor. So you might explore steadiness in the core of your body, in your torso, and movement through your hip. And there's an option to do this movement for 5, for 4, for 3, for 2, and for 1. And on the upswing, you might take your hands behind your hamstring, maybe behind your knee or behind your calf. And there's an option to take one perhaps slower breath, drawing your leg in towards you. You can release that leg to the earth and let the other leg rise up if you're interested in taking that sequence on the other side. Maybe a bent leg, maybe a straight leg, and then finding that rhythm of lowering your leg towards the earth and back towards your face, towards your chest. And the rhythm is up to you. The pace of your movement, how big you make the movement, that's up to you. If you pause, if you stay with the rhythm. And again, you could get interested in keeping your lower back a little closer to the floor. And you might do this for 5, for 4, 3, 2, for 1. And on the upswing there, you could draw your leg in towards you with your hands, perhaps holding behind the back of your hamstring, your knee, or your calf. Perhaps engaging in a slightly slower, slightly smoother, slightly longer breath. You can let that leg come to the earth. Your choice here, you might walk your feet a little bit wider and let your knees fall in towards each other. And see how that feels for your lower spine. You might outstretch your legs fully, widening out through your feet, and let the pinky toe side of your foot drop out towards the earth, opening up the front of your hips any amount. And again, there's an option to keep your eyes open and soft, or perhaps you close your eyes and take a moment to feel your earth body touching earth, to attend to yourself, to release your weight. And perhaps taking one slightly smoother, slightly longer, slightly slower breath. You might stay there, or perhaps you outstretch one arm and roll to your side. Use your hands to press you up. And if you're in a seat, if it's a gesture that you like, you could take your hands together. You might bow your head and acknowledge that you made choices today that support you. And from our triad, we thank you for your engagement and your attention today.